born in South Fayette Township, in a mining patch. I was born and raised in a mining patch. My father was a coal miner. My grandfathers were coal miners. And it was a wonderful community, and I wouldn't choose any other place to be raised other than that community. It was ethnic. You had to be able to speak about 6 or 7 hellos and how are you doing, and I'm here for your groceries, because my dad had a little store for a while. And it was just the best. And I heard all the wonderful music, and I was born at a time, 1946, when TV wasn't around in people's homes yet. So we listened to the radio until I was about 4 years old. We got a TV, but the radio, and we always, my family had great taste in music all the time. And my grandparents from Italy, I'm French and Italian, and one set of grandparents lived on one side of across the alley, and the French grandparents lived in the same house with us in a duplex. So I was able to learn both languages, and also be exposed to great music. We listened to great music, and my Italian grandparents, the Morcantis, they sang in the little plays in the small village where they were from, and it was musical plays, And my French grandparents just loved and promoted good things. We listened on Saturday afternoon. We went to grandmother's house, and it was always the Metropolitan Opera broadcasts. So we listened all the time. And then, you listen to things when you're a little kid. You just listen. You're 3, 4 years old. When you start to see it, and when television first came out, they would broadcast the Toscanini NBC Symphony Orchestra concerts on Sunday afternoons, and also the Chicago Symphony Orchestra with Fritz Reiner. So, when you're a little kid, you'll listen for a while, but when you can listen and watch, that's where you really get hooked up to music. So sophomore year of high school, we started to get a little group together, because in those days, in the 60s, there were no DJs at clubs or bars, and every bar could afford you. You were making just a few bucks, and so you got to play all the time. And it was wonderful to learn the most important thing I've ever learned in the American Songbook, learning those tunes and learning how harmonies worked, and playing with different guys some were real skilled. I got to play with some guys with great experience, and one of the best experiences was when I was in college, or years of college, and I got to play with guys who'd been playing for years, and there was no music. So I was playing bass in those days, pretty much, and I would get to learn all the tunes and know, that's the same change. They'll turn around, it's the same changes as this tune. Okay, gotcha. Earl Garner's Misty was one of the first tunes that I learned to play. Really, it really was. I'm one of those guys who remember chord changes of everything, and I remember that tune. I was playing bass, and I played with some really good guys in those days. When I first started out, then later on, you just play with everybody, and you had to just take that all in. Especially, I was so impressed with people who never studied music that could play so well, and they didn't always play all the changes, like in harmonies. If it was a 2/7, 2/7, 5/7, you're not going to get the 2/7. You're just going to get the 5/7. So, but that's okay. They never learned to do that, and they should understand that. No, trumpet was first. I only lasted a year on trumpet because I had the absolute worst trumpet on the show ever. Nobody could make a worse sound on trumpet. It didn't sound like a trumpet. I don't know what it sounded like. But then my band director, his name was Dominic Sakiti, and he was one of the old guard. He started. In the late 40s is when the high school bands started to come around, and the music started to get into the curriculum at that time. And Dominic was he was from McKees Rocks, and a wonderful trumpet player, and played with all the big bands and big acts during the Second World War. He was in the Army, and he switched me to euphonium, to baritone, and I just loved it. And I went home, and my mother was just appalled. What is that? What do you even call that? What's the purpose of that? So my first teaching job was here at Montour. We're at Montour, and I took the job that I knew that I could do. Back in 1968, I graduated college, and there was a teacher shortage, and the teacher shortage was in every subject, and band was really short. And I was offered 6 positions, and 2 of them were high school positions. And I knew that at 22 years old, I wasn't ready at all. The smartest thing I ever did was wait. I knew that I didn't know a thing about running high school band. And as a matter of fact, later on, when younger people said, "Oh, I'm going to come right out of college and be a band director," I said, "Man, you've got a lot to learn about budget and dealing with parents and school buses and ordering school buses and stuff. Don't, go teach in the junior high or elementary for a while and learn." So I was here in 1968, and Joe Peakey, the fellow who was here he was a legend here he's a legend here at Montour. He started in 1947. They had the band in 47. He started the West Hills Band in 1967, and I started here in 68. So he didn't know a thing about me other than he got to be real good friends and colleagues. And he asked me to play, and I said, well, they already had 3 euphoniums. And I said, what's you doing 4? It was a smaller band, and they only had about 55 people. So in the 69 season, he insisted that I play. So I did, and I played in 69 and 70 and 71. Then our first child was born in 72. And I was coming and playing in 72, but I really wanted to not miss a moment with her. And so I said, Joe, you really don't need me right now. And he said, okay, but can I call you for sub? And if I'm get out, I said, absolutely. So I still sub. But then I went back when the kids got a little older and played bass. And I played bass in the band for quite a while. And I always wrote arrangements for the band. I started writing arrangements for the band way back in about 1971. I think they played a concert at Carnegie Music Hall in Homestead, and there was a march called the Carnegie Music Hall March or something like that. And it was just a sheet music. It was a piano, and I arranged it for the band. I'll never forget that. That was the first thing I wrote for the band. In 1976 now, we're talking, this has all happened in just a few years. So in 1976, there was an element in the band, I hope that doesn't seem a pejorative term. There was a group of people in the band who belonged to a certain religion. And when the 1976 came up and Joe was going to do, of course, the bicentennial concert, they all bailed on him. We're not playing that. So Clem, what? He says, you have to help me. So, of course, I helped him. He was my dear friend. And I'm sorry. We got through that. We had to find guys to play that kind of thing, So I went back in 76. I played 76, 77. I stayed for a while. Then in about 80, I stayed for quite a while, I guess. And then in 83, I took this band over, the high school band, and Joe went to the junior high. And I knew that I was not going to be able to play West Hills. I was just not. And so I stopped playing. Meanwhile, I had been writing for them all that time, and I continued to, I believe, write for them even then. And so I wasn't in the band. We stayed friends, et cetera, et cetera. But in 1997, Joe gave up the band after 30 years, and Anthony Deanny took over. And I still wasn't involved. At that time, I had gone to South Fayette. I left Montour in 1990 for South Fayette. Best move I ever made in my life. Loved it there. Loved it. And I started at Robert Morris University doing both gigs. South End and Robert Morris in 1994, and so I stayed there 14 years after I retired from public school. But okay, well, let's get back to where I was. And then so Tony ran into me at Volkwein's, and Tony used to work at Volkwein's family, of course, Deanny, and asked me, Clem, could you help me with West Hills? And he said this exactly. He said, Clem, could you take over West Hills band? I said, oh no. I said, I can help you maybe, Tony. I have some time now. But it was 2006, I believe. I said, well, no, I can't take it over. I'm still at Robert Morris, and that's my full-time thing, And I was doing, of course, every band that I had, whether it was Montour and Robert Morris and South Fayette, I wrote every arrangement. We didn't buy a single marching band arrangement. We did a march show here at Montour, so there was some respite from my writing. We did 2 marches and a tune in the middle, which I did write the tune in the middle. But at Robert Morris, I was still writing all the tunes. And I had the jazz band over there and a small jazz band, which I wrote all the tunes for. And so I was real busy. And I was still gigging like crazy then. But this whole time I had been gigging, by the way. This whole time. Sometimes back in the 80s and 90s, I was playing 4 nights a week and running a high school band. And I don't know, I ended up having a family that I dearly loved and took care of. And I don't know how I did that. But anyway, so in 2006, so Tony said, I want you to take over. I said, no. So I stayed with 3 years. And then he left and I took over in 2009. And the first person that I chose to work with me is the fabulous Tom Snyder, the most organized, the most dedicated, loyal, knowledgeable person that I could possibly choose. When I first came, Tony had a hard time keeping quality musicians. There was just I don't know what it was. It was a situation where it was very fluid with the band. They really didn't have a set schedule. They really didn't have a set summer idea of what they wanted to do. So that kind of inconsistency, it seemed, didn't attract people. So Tom and I, first of all, established we're going to do this. We're going to rehearse 5 rehearsals and a concert. And so that kind of a thing. And then we started, of course, bringing in, I started calling better musicians up. How about playing? How about coming out? We're going to do this. And I baited them with playing what we're going to play literature. We're going to play this tune. We're going to play this. And then I'll say, once I got a good guy, I'll say, oh, this guy's coming. And then they'll say, well, these 2 guys are coming. And that's how, I really worked on building up the quality of the musicians in the band. Because when I first took over, there was guys who would just show up for the concert, which said, how can you possibly? That doesn't work. So then it just got better, and we started to get better people, and then through attrition, some of the people who couldn't play the parts, they were like sometimes just never played other than high school, and the music got a little bit tough, and we didn't mean to eliminate them, but it was just by a process. Hey, I can't play this, So we got tougher stuff, and the tougher the music, the more wonderful musicians we had. We attracted, and the way we rehearse, we waste no time. We don't talk. People don't come to play on a Sunday afternoon to hear me or Tom or me talk. They don't come for that. They come to play music. Sure, we're going to rehearse, and I move very quickly in my rehearsal. People also hate. Somebody just asked me once again for the 7,000th time, how did I become a good conductor? How did I learn to become a good conductor? I learned to become a good conductor by playing for so many bad ones. That was the trick. Terrible conductors. Talk. Work with the clarinets 25 minutes while everybody else in the band's sitting there. I will never do that. Everybody that comes in has to understand that everybody can't be here for every rehearsal. It's a city group. But what I found out to be the secret to success is you must keep your musicians engaged and challenged. And you must keep your audience engaged, entertained, and never challenged. They can't sit there and say, what was that? What was that supposed to be? I don't understand that. Didn't like that at all. You can't do that. So that's the hardest part, keeping the musicians challenged and interested and playing music that the audience is going to love and come out to hear your concerts on a Sunday afternoon. With nowadays, back in the 50s and 60s, this place would have been hanging from the rafters because there wasn't a million television stations. Now they have all these options. So we really that's who we're competing against, is the media, But that's never been a problem. And even if you rehearse a tune, and I'll explain to the band, you've heard me many times, I'll say, this is not a hard arrangement, but to play this musically, it's going to be a challenge. And I'll say that so many times. We have to play everything musically, and everything has to be communicated. And conducting is about conveying the intentions of the composer or arranger to the ensemble, and the ensemble in turn conveys the intentions of the composer and the arranger, and some of the conductor's input to the audience. We did a transcription, which no one else did that I heard. I heard all the other bands, and no one did a transcription. And we did a really wonderful one called "The Merry Wives of Windsor," and it was this fellow who wrote that was the first conductor of the Vienna Symphony, the Vienna Philharmonic. And right afterwards, one of the great arrangers, Jerry Brubaker, was in the audience, and he came up to me and he said, "I said, I'm Jerry Brubaker. So what an honor to meet you." He said, "No other band could play it like you played it." Now, wow, that was amazing, But just playing these concerts for the community and seeing a big crowd come out, and for all the musicians to have that audience jump up. And what I like is when I was at South Fayette, I had great bands here at Montour and great bands at South Fayette, but South Fayette was a real entertaining halftime show, high energy. And I would tell the kids, listen, I don't want to see people stand up at the end of the show. I want to see them jump up. And that's what I see here at Montour with our concert. People jump out of their seats. Wow, we're getting to them, of course, I'll never be satisfied till there's a line to get in, But that's the way it is. You take what you have. I think we're very successful. There are still tunes that I want to do, and I get them out. They're out all the time. But then I'll say, I use this term. I'll say, we could do this, but with the other literature we want to play, this isn't worth the investment, because it would take too much time to play this piece in rehearsal, and we'd have to sacrifice what else there is, and it's not worth it. It's not going to go over that big with you. Brahms' Academic Overture transcription. Man, I love that piece. But the clarinet parts are so ridiculously difficult on the one part. I don't know if it'll ever work, And so there's an overture called Mignon by Thomas. Now, we've done 2 Thomas overtures. We've done Raymond and Zampa. He was the overture cat, man. He was great. And none of his operas ever made it. but the overtures are still around. So that Mignon is, it's got a harp thing in there. I'd have to, that's one of my bucket lists, the harp. I'm going to get another bucket list tune done. I'm going to get Outdoor Overture, Aaron Copland. We're going to get that this year. We're doing that. But I had, Chad, you were really instrumental in letting me do one of the ones on my, accomplish one of the ones on my list was the Freischütz. We did that with a wonderful horn quartet. Tears, man. When you guys played that, it was tears. Greatest gift in giving is giving. I can give what I have to these wonderful people. And that's like you had said, the reason you come back, we have the nicest people ever. There are no egos here. And that comes from, I believe it comes from the front, first of all. There are no egos. I'm not I. It's never a me or an I from Tom or myself. And none of the officers in the band. We are here for the band. But I guess, and to answer your question, it's just about being able to give my experience and my knowledge and to still entertain people. That's what it is to me.